Every evening at 6 p.m. sharp, the same man walked into the small corner diner. He wore a dark coat, always buttoned up, and a plain gray cap pulled low over his eyes. His face looked tired, like someone carrying heavy pain. He never smiled. He never talked much. He always sat alone at the same place, booth number 6, near the window. The staff called him the quiet man. Lily, a 22-year-old waitress, worked the evening shift. She was known for her bright smile and kind heart. She had worked at the diner for 3 years and had seen all types of customers. But there was something different about the man in booth 6. He never caused trouble, never made a mess, but there was always a sadness in his eyes, like he was lost, like something in his soul was missing. Lily made it her little mission to be extra kind to him. Every day, when he came in, she greeted him with a warm smile and said softly, "Welcome back, sir." He would just nod, not saying a word, and look out the window. He always ordered the same thing, a cup of black coffee. No sugar, no cream. Just black, strong, and hot. At first, Lily thought maybe he was just shy. But weeks turned into months, and the man still barely spoke. Even when she tried to make small talk, he would only answer with 1 or 2 words. And sometimes, not at all. Other waitresses joked about it. "He's like a ghost," one of them said. "Sits there like he's waiting for someone who'll never come." Creepy. Another one added, "I bet he lives alone with 20 cats. But Lily didn't laugh. She felt something in her heart when she looked at him, a kind of silent pain. She didn't know his name, or where he came from, but deep inside, she believed there was a story behind those sad eyes. One evening, as she brought his usual cup of coffee, she placed it gently on the table and said, "I hope your day was kind to you." For the first time, he looked up and met her eyes. His gaze was soft, but full of sorrow. "Thank you," he said. Just that. 2 simple words. Lily was surprised. It was the first time he had spoken to her properly. She gave him a big smile and said, "You're welcome." That night, after closing time, Lily stayed behind to clean, but her mind was still thinking about the man in booth 6. Why had he suddenly spoken today? What made today different? The next evening he didn't come. Lily kept looking at the door every few minutes, hoping he would walk in like usual, but he never did. She told herself not to worry. Maybe he was sick, maybe he had an appointment. People missed things sometimes. It didn't mean something was wrong, but then, the next day, he still didn't come. And the next 4 days passed. Booth 6 stayed empty. Lily tried to focus on work, but she kept glancing at that booth. It just didn't feel right, seeing it so empty. Then, on the 5th day, something strange happened. When Lily came in for her shift, the manager called her over. "There's something for you," he said, handing her a folded napkin. "It was found on booth 6 this morning when we opened." Lily's heart skipped a beat. She opened the napkin carefully. Inside, written in neat, small handwriting, were 5 simple words. "You saved me. Thank you." Underneath it was her name, Lily. Her hands trembled. She looked at the note again. That booth had been empty when she left last night, so someone must have come in after hours or early this morning. But the diner was always locked overnight. "How did it get there?" she asked. The manager shrugged. "No clue. We checked the cameras. No one saw anyone come in." Lily stared at the words. "You saved me." What did that mean? Why now? And where was he? She sat down at booth 6, holding the napkin tightly. Her mind was racing. She didn't even know his name, yet he knew hers. And he had written this note, with so much care. Who was he? What had she saved him from? The questions piled up in her heart like storm clouds. But one thing was clear. This wasn't just about a quiet customer and a kind waitress. This was something deeper, something hidden. Lily folded the napkin gently and placed it in her apron pocket. She stood up and looked out the same window he used to stare through. The city outside was still moving, busy and loud. But somewhere out there, the quiet man from booth 6 was gone, and he had left behind a mystery. That night, as Lily lay in bed, she held the napkin in her hand. She closed her eyes and whispered, "Where are you?" She didn't know it yet, but her life was about to change, because the quiet man was not finished with her story. Not yet. Lily couldn't stop thinking about the note. Even while serving customers and pouring coffee, her thoughts kept drifting back to those 5 words. "You saved me. Thank you." The man had barely spoken a sentence to her in months, yet now he had written something that felt deeply personal. She tried to remember every moment they had shared, no matter how small. The way he always stared out the window. The way he slightly nodded when she brought his coffee. The one time he whispered thank you. It wasn't much, but now it felt like those tiny moments had meant more than she knew. That night, after her shift, Lily stayed back in the diner. The place was quiet, the lights were dim. She sat alone at booth 6 and placed the napkin on the table. She stared at it for a long time. Then she noticed something she hadn't seen before. In the bottom corner of the napkin, written in very small letters, was something else. An address. It was written so faintly that she almost missed it. Her heart started to race. Was this where he lived? Did he want her to find him? She stared at it for a while, unsure what to do. Her head told her to forget it. It wasn't her place to go, looking for a stranger, but her heart told her something else. Something about the way he looked at her, the way he left this note, felt like an unfinished story. That night, she sat on her bed with the napkin in her hands. The address was only a few blocks away, a quiet neighborhood. She looked it up on her phone. It wasn't far, not dangerous. Still, her best friend Mia warned her, "Lily, this could be anything. What if it's not safe?" "I know," Lily said, "but what if he needs help?" The next morning, she walked to the address. It was early, the sun just rising behind the houses. The street was quiet, lined with trees and old street lamps. Her steps slowed as she reached the house. It was small, worn down, with peeling paint and a crooked mailbox. Curtains were drawn shut. The place looked empty, abandoned. Lily stood at the gate for a moment, unsure. Then she gathered her courage, stepped forward, and gently knocked on the door. No answer. She waited, knocked again. Still nothing. Just as she was about to turn away, she heard a soft voice behind her. "Are you looking for Thomas?" Lily turned. An old woman stood on the porch of the house next door. She had kind eyes. "And a cane." "Yes," Lily said quietly. "I work at the diner. He used to come in every day." The woman nodded slowly. "He hasn't been home for a few days now. Last I saw him, he was sitting outside, staring at the sky." "Do you know where he went?" Lily asked. The woman shook her head. "Thomas is different. He's been through a lot. Never talks much. Keeps to himself." "Do you know anything about his past?" Lily asked. The woman looked thoughtful. "He had a family once, a wife and a little boy. They died in a car crash. Ever since then, he stopped living. He just disappeared inside himself. Some days I'd see him just sitting on his porch, holding a photo. Other days, he'd be gone for hours, wandering the streets." Lily's chest tightened. She had guessed there was pain behind his eyes, but this was more than she imagined. "Why do you ask?" the woman said. Lily hesitated. Then she showed her the napkin. "He left this for me." The woman looked at it and smiled softly. "That's the first time I've seen his handwriting in years." "What should I do?" Lily asked. "Maybe he's asking you to understand him," the woman said. "Or maybe he's just saying goodbye." Lily left the house feeling more confused than before. She didn't know where to go next. But something kept telling her that this wasn't over. Back at the diner that evening, she sat again at booth 6. The manager walked by and said, "Still thinking about your ghost, man?" Lily smiled faintly. Something like that. As she sat in the booth, her fingers traced the surface of the table. Then she noticed something odd, a small scratch in the wood, shaped almost like letters. She leaned in closer. It looked like someone had carved a word there long ago. A single word. Hope. Her heart skipped a beat. Had Thomas written that? Was it his reminder to himself? Or was it meant for her? That night, she couldn't sleep. Her mind was full of images. Thomas staring at the window. The napkin, the empty house, the word hope. Then she had an idea. Maybe the diner wasn't just a place he visited. Maybe it meant something more to him, a place of memory, of comfort. Maybe he had left more behind. The next morning, she returned early, before opening time. She asked the manager if she could look around the booth area before customers arrived. He agreed, though he thought she was being strange. Lily got on her knees and looked under the table. Taped underneath was something thin and flat, a folded piece of paper. Her hands shook as she pulled it free and opened it. It was a photo, a woman, a little boy, and Thomas, all smiling, standing outside a house. On the back, it said, June 10th, 2009, the best day of my life. Tears filled Lily's eyes. She sat in the booth and stared at the picture. Now she understood. Thomas had not been coming for food or company. He had been coming for memory. This booth had become his place of silent grieving, a place to hold on to the people he had lost. And maybe her smile had helped him begin to let go. That evening, Lily left a note of her own. She placed it under the sugar jar at booth 6. It read, "You're not alone. I'm still here. Come back when you're ready." She didn't know if he would ever return, but she had to believe that somewhere in the quiet city, the man from booth 6 was still out there. And maybe, just maybe, he had started to heal. Ask ChatGPT. The days passed slowly after Lily left the note at booth 6. Every time the bell above the diner door rang, she looked up, hoping it would be him. But it was always someone else, a group of students, a tired truck driver, a couple on a date. She smiled through her shift, refilled coffees, took orders, and laughed when needed. But inside, a small part of her waited. Not just for Thomas, but for some kind of answer. She didn't know why she felt so connected to a man who had spoken barely a few words to her. Maybe because she saw a reflection of her own sadness in him. Lily had known loss to her brother Aaron, had died 3 years ago. He had been the funny one, the wild one, always pulling pranks and playing guitar too loudly. When he died suddenly in an accident, Lily had stopped smiling for months. It was Aaron who once told her, "Your smile makes the world softer." It was only after a stranger at the bus stop told her, "Thank you for your smile, I needed that today," that she began to realize maybe her brother was right. Maybe something as small as a smile could make a difference. And maybe that's why Thomas kept coming back. She thought about this as she stood by booth 6 after her shift one evening. She sat in the empty booth and stared out the window, trying to see the world as Thomas had seen it. What did he think about as he looked through the glass every evening? Was he remembering the past? or wishing he could change it? The next morning, a small envelope was found on the diner's doorstep. It had Lily's name written in block letters. She opened it with trembling fingers. Inside was a folded paper and an old photograph. The paper said, "Booth 6 was the last place I felt human. Your kindness reminded me who I used to be. I'm not ready to come back, but I want you to have this. It's all I have left." The photograph showed a woman with long brown hair and gentle eyes, holding a small boy who had the same smile as Thomas. The picture was worn, faded around the edges, as if it had been held many times. Lily held it close. This was his family. This was his heart. She wanted to know more. Who were they? What happened that turned him into the silent man who barely spoke? After work, she visited the elderly neighbor again. The woman invited her in and poured her some tea. Lily showed her the photograph. The woman's eyes softened. "That's Sarah, his wife, and little Jamie," she said. "They were everything to him." She paused before continuing. There was a snowstorm. The roads were bad. They were coming to surprise him at work. Their car slid on the ice. Lily's eyes filled. "He told me once, in the early days, that the world became too loud after that. He stopped going to church, stopped seeing friends. The only place he ever went after was the diner." "Why the diner?" Lily asked. "Sarah worked there once, long ago when they first met. Maybe sitting in that booth reminded him of her. Or maybe he just needed to see something good again." Lily sat quietly, letting the story settle inside her. Then the old woman added, "He told me about you, you know? Said there was a girl with a smile like sunlight." Lily blushed and looked down. "I didn't know it mattered that much." "Oh, sweetheart," the woman said, reaching for her hand. "You brought a man back from the edge." That night, Lily wrote a letter of her own. She didn't know if Thomas would ever see it, but she needed to put her feelings into words. She wrote, "Dear Thomas, thank you for your quiet courage. Thank you for showing me that kindness, even in silence, can reach the deepest part of someone. Your pain, it is heavy, but it does not make you less. You are still worthy of peace, of joy, of love. I hope you find your way back, not just to the diner, but to the world. And if you ever feel lost again, booth 6 will be waiting. So will I." She placed the letter under the sugar jar, just like she had before. The next few days came and went, without a sign. Then, one rainy afternoon, the bell above the door rang. Lily turned around and froze. It was Thomas. He looked thinner, older somehow, but there was something different in his eyes. Not joy, not sadness. Something softer, acceptance. He walked slowly to booth 6 and sat down. Lily approached him with a gentle smile. "Black coffee." He nodded. She brought it to him, placed it on the table, and didn't say anything more. She didn't need to. After a few minutes, he spoke. "I saw your letter." She sat across from him quietly. "I meant every word." He nodded again. Then he reached into his coat pocket and pulled out something wrapped in tissue paper. He handed it to her. Inside was a necklace with a small locket. "It was Sarah's," he said. "She always said one day she'd give it to someone with a heart like hers. I think she'd want you to have it." Lily was speechless. Her hands trembled as she held the locket. Inside was a photo and Jamie, smiling. "Thank you," she whispered. He looked out the window, then back at her. "I'm not healed. I don't think I ever will be, but I want to try. Maybe, live again." Little by little, Lily smiled, eyes full. That's all anyone can do. They sat in silence, drinking coffee, watching the rain run down the glass. No more words were needed. The quiet man in booth 6 had returned, not just to the diner, but to life. And it all began with a smile. The next few weeks brought gentle changes. Thomas came to the diner every other day now, not just for the coffee, but for the silence he could share with Lily. He never stayed long, but his visits became part of the rhythm of the place. The other staff members noticed but didn't ask questions. Lily simply smiled whenever he came in, and he would nod in return. He sat at booth 6 as always, but something about his presence felt lighter now. It was as if a heavy fog around him had begun to lift. One afternoon, while the diner was quiet, Thomas stayed longer than usual. Lily had just finished wiping down the counter when she noticed him looking at the wall behind her. There were old photos of the diner's early days, black and white shots of waitresses in uniforms, customers in suits, and families enjoying pie. Thomas stood and walked over slowly. He pointed to one picture. "That's her," he said. Lily stepped beside him. It was a photo of a young woman smiling brightly as she held a coffee pot. "Sarah, she worked here before I bought the place," the manager said, overhearing them. "That's from the year 1998, I think. She was everyone's favorite." Thomas nodded. "That's when I met her." Lily saw the look in his eyes, not pain this time, but warmth. She was wearing that same smile the first time she served. "Me coffee, just like you." Lily felt her throat tighten. She gently touched his arm. "She would be proud of how much you've survived." Thomas didn't answer, but his eyes said enough. A few days later, Lily was finishing her shift when Thomas approached the counter. In his hand he held a small notebook. "I've been writing," he said quietly. "Memories, thoughts, things I've kept inside too long." He placed the notebook on the counter. "Would you read it?" Lily hesitated. "Are you sure?" You were the first person in years who saw me, he said. Maybe you'll understand what I couldn't say out loud. That night, at home, Lily sat on her bed with the notebook in her lap. The cover was plain, the pages filled with simple handwriting. The first entry read, Day 1. I didn't think I'd make it through the night, but I did. Maybe that means something. As she turned the pages, she read about his grief, his memories of Sarah and Jamie, the sound of laughter that used to fill his house, and the silence that replaced it after the accident. There were pages about the guilt he carried, how he had begged the universe to take him instead of them, how he stopped believing in anything good. Then there were pages about the diner, about the girl with the kind eyes and gentle voice. He had written, She doesn't know what she's doing, just smiling, just offering coffee, but it's enough to keep me breathing. Lily wiped tears from her cheeks. The words were raw and honest. She understood now that her smile hadn't just been a kind gesture, it had been his lifeline. The next day she returned the notebook to him with a simple note inside. Thank you for trusting me. I'm honored. Thomas read her message at his booth. He nodded to himself and tucked the notebook back into his coat. I've decided to visit them, he said quietly. The cemetery. Lily placed a gentle hand on the table. Do you want company? He looked at her for a long moment, then, with a soft voice, said, Yes. On Sunday morning, they met at the cemetery gates. It was a peaceful place, filled with trees and soft wind. Thomas walked slowly, holding a bouquet of white flowers. They reached a headstone side by side, one for Sarah, one for Jamie. Thomas knelt and placed the flowers carefully. His hands shook slightly. Lily stood a few steps back, giving him space. He began to speak softly. I'm sorry it took me so long. I didn't know how to face this. I thought if I ran far enough, the pain would stop, but it didn't. It just waited for me. He touched the headstone with care. There's a girl. Her name's Lily. She's the reason I'm here. I think you'd have liked her. Lily looked away, giving him privacy. When he stood again, his face was wet with tears, but there was strength in the way he stood. They walked out of the cemetery together, in silence. At the diner the next day, Thomas brought an envelope. For you, he said, handing it to Lily. Inside was a short letter. It read, I've decided to leave the city for a while. I need to find peace, and I think I need to be somewhere new to do it. But I wanted you to know you changed my life. I will never forget booth 6, or you. There was a return address. At the bottom, in case she ever wanted to write. Lily folded the letter carefully and smiled. Thank you for letting me be part of your story. Thomas smiled, the smallest one yet but real. Then he left the diner. No one saw him again for months, but the locket he gave her stayed close to her heart. She wore it every day. Booth 6 remained, always waiting. A place of memory. A place where two broken people found connection through something as simple as a smile. And though the man was gone, the story wasn't over. Not yet, because kindness doesn't end, it lives on in the hearts it touches. Lily returned to her daily routine at the diner, but something had changed inside her. The emptiness in booth 6 was more than just a missing customer, it was a quiet reminder of someone whose pain had been shared, seen, and slowly softened. Every time she passed that booth, she paused for a moment, remembering the quiet man who once found comfort there. She still wore the locket Thomas had given her. Sometimes, when her shift ended and the diner was quiet, she would sit at booth 6, run her fingers along the smooth wood of the table, and wonder where he was now. Had he found peace? Was he still writing? The months passed, and seasons changed. The leaves outside turned gold, then fell, snow came, covering the streets in silence. Life at the diner moved on. New customers came in, regulars returned, and Lily kept smiling. But a part of her heart always remained open, waiting. One morning in early spring, a letter arrived at the diner. It had her name on it in familiar handwriting. Her heart raced as she opened it. Inside was a short message. Dear Lily, I'm writing from a small town by the coast. It's quiet here. I walk by the sea every morning and think of the days I sat in booth 6, lost in my own storm. I still write, and I still carry your kindness with me. Thank you for giving me the courage to face what I had buried. I hope you're well, always, Thomas. Tears welled in her eyes as she read the words. He was alive, healing, walking by the sea. She folded the letter and placed it inside her journal, then smiled to herself. That same day, a new customer walked into the diner. He was about Lily's age, wearing a backpack and carrying a sketchpad. He sat at booth 6. Lily hesitated for a moment, then walked over. Hi there, she said warmly. Can I get you something? He looked up and smiled. Coffee, please. And maybe a muffin if they're warm. She nodded and turned away, but something about his eyes made her glance back. He was sketching when she returned with the coffee and muffin. She placed them gently on the table. Are you an artist? He smiled shyly. Trying to be. I travel a lot, draw people in places, hoping it turns into something real someday. She peeked at his drawing. It was the diner beautifully detailed, with soft pencil lines capturing the cozy feel of the room. Booth 6 was at the center. That's really good, she said. Thanks. This place feels peaceful. She smiled. It has stories. Over the next few days, the artist, his name was Daniel, kept coming back. He always sat at booth 6. He drew, drank coffee, and shared little pieces of his life. He had no fixed home, just kept moving from town to town, looking for moments worth remembering. One evening, when the diner was nearly empty, Daniel looked at Lily and asked, "You ever feel like you're waiting for something, but you don't know what?" She laughed softly. "All the time," he smiled. "Me too." They began talking more. Between orders and refills, they shared stories, dreams, fears. Lily told him about her brother, about Thomas, about the note and the booth. Daniel listened closely, never interrupting. "That's beautiful," he said, "and sad, but also brave." "I didn't feel brave," she said. Just human. One evening, Daniel showed her his latest sketch. It was of her standing by booth 6, holding a coffee pot, smiling. "You looked peaceful," he said, "like someone who understands silence." Lily felt something stir inside her, a connection, not the deep ache she felt with Thomas, but something lighter, like a beginning. As spring turned to summer, their bond grew. They started going for walks after her shift, sitting in the park and talking until the stars appeared. One night, Daniel said, "I'm thinking about staying a while, maybe getting a small studio. This town feels right." Lily smiled. "I think it would be nice to have you here." He reached for her hand. She didn't pull away. Back at the diner, the manager watched them and shook his head with a smile. "Booth 6, he muttered, "has more magic than I thought." But Lily knew it wasn't magic. It was memory, connection, the power of small moments shared between strangers. One afternoon, another letter arrived from Thomas. This one was longer. He wrote about joining a local writing group, about speaking to a classroom of children about grief and healing. He wrote, "I never thought I'd find a reason to speak again, but I found it because of you." He ended the letter with a question. "How are you? Truly, are you still smiling?" Lily wrote back. She told him about Daniel, about the new piece she was finding. She wrote, "Yes, I'm still smiling, and I think maybe, finally, it's for me too." She placed the letter in the mail with a full heart. Months later, on the anniversary of the day, she found the note in booth 6. Lily and Daniel sat at that very table. She told him everything from the beginning, every detail she hadn't yet shared. When she finished, he was silent for a long time. Then he said, "That man, he didn't just leave a note. He left a legacy, and you carried it." Lily looked at the booth, the sunlight coming through the window just right. She nodded. "I think we all carry each other sometimes. And sometimes," Daniel said, "we carry someone just enough for them to stand again." She smiled, leaned her head on his shoulder, and whispered, "Booth 6 is more than a seat. It's a place where broken things begin to heal." They sat in peaceful silence, letting the weight of the moment settle. The past was still there, but it didn't hurt the same way anymore, and the future, uncertain as it was, felt wide open. Summer passed gently, bringing warm winds and longer evenings. The diner buzzed with life, laughter, and the clinking of cups, but Lily found moments of stillness in between. Her days now carried a different rhythm. Daniel was still in town, and their bond had deepened in quiet, comfortable ways. He would come by during her shifts, sometimes sketching, sometimes just keeping her company during breaks. They shared more than words, they shared silence, understanding, and the slow building of something meaningful. One morning, Lily arrived early to open the diner. As she unlocked the door, she noticed a small package resting on the step. It was wrapped in brown paper with her name written in careful, familiar handwriting. Her heart skipped. She knew that handwriting. It was from Thomas. She picked it up gently and brought it inside. Once the door was locked behind her, she sat in booth 6 and opened it. Inside was a leather-bound journal and a note. The note read, "Dear Lily, this is my story. Not the one of grief, but the one that came after. I've been writing for months, and I wanted you to have the first copy. Without you, these pages wouldn't exist. Booth 6 gave me a reason to return to the world. Your kindness gave me a voice. Thank you, always, Thomas." Her hands trembled as she opened the journal. The first page had a dedication for the girl with the brave smile. Tears filled her eyes. She pressed the book to her chest and sat quietly, the weight of his words settling in her heart. Later that evening, she showed the journal to Daniel. He read the dedication and smiled, gently. "That's the kind of thing people remember forever." "He's doing better," she said softly. "He's living now." Daniel nodded. "And you helped him get there." They sat at booth 6 for a while, not saying much. Lily thought about how far everything had come, from a simple smile to a story that might one day help others. She thought about grief, about healing, about how two strangers had crossed paths at just the right time. A few weeks later, the diner manager approached Lily with a proposal. "You ever think about managing this place?" he asked. "You've got heart. The customers love you. I'm planning to retire soon, and I'd like to leave the place in good hands." Lily was surprised. "Me run the diner?" "Why not?" he said. "You already run the soul of it." She laughed but felt warmth spread through her chest. The diner had been her world for so long. It had seen her through pain and change. Maybe it was time she gave back to it in a bigger way. That night, as she walked home with Daniel, she told him about the offer. He grinned. You'd be amazing. You already are. I don't know anything about owning a business, but you know how to listen, how to care. That's more than most owners ever learn. She looked at him and smiled. You believe in me. Always, he said. The following week, she told the manager she was ready. Papers were signed, plans were made. Soon, Lily became the new owner of the diner. She kept everything, the same coffee, same pie recipe, same booth numbers. But she added something new, a small framed photo of Thomas's journal on the wall above booth 6, with a plaque that read, "In memory of second chances." Customers asked about it often, and Lily would smile and say, "It's a long story, but a good one." One rainy afternoon, as she wiped down tables, a mother walked in with a little boy holding a backpack. They looked tired, and the boy seemed upset. Lily welcomed them and guided them to booth 6 as she poured them warm drinks. She overheard the boy say, "I just miss Daddy, that's all." Something stirred in her heart. She leaned down and said gently, "This booth is special. A lot of people have sat here when they were sad. It's a good place to feel better." The boy looked at her, curious why. "Because people have found hope here," she said. "Sometimes all we need is a quiet place and someone who understands." The boy gave a small nod. His mother smiled with tears in her eyes. Later, when they left, the boy whispered, "Thank you, lady." Lily watched them go, heart full. She thought of Thomas. She thought of herself years ago, standing in this very booth, wondering what a simple smile could mean. Autumn arrived with a gentle chill in the air, and golden leaves drifting across the sidewalks. Inside the diner, everything stayed warm, the scent of cinnamon pies, the sound of clinking cups, and the comforting hum of conversation. Lily stood behind the counter, her eyes occasionally glancing toward booth 6. It had become more than just a seat. It was a place of comfort, of stories, of quiet healing. Customers had begun requesting it by name. "Can we sit at the booth of second chances?" they'd ask, and Lily always smiled as she led them there. She didn't tell every story behind it. Some stories needed to stay sacred, but for those who truly seemed lost, broken, or searching, she would offer a gentle version of a man who once sat there in silence, and how kindness brought him back to life. Daniel continued to be her soft place to land. His sketches now filled a small corner of the diner, framed and displayed near the window. People admired them, often asking if they were for sale. He never accepted money but gifted a few to people who connected deeply with his work. One day, he surprised Lily with a sketch he'd been working on for weeks. It showed her standing by booth 6, sunlight pouring through the window behind her, the locket around her neck glowing faintly. In the booth sat several figures, not just Thomas, but others too. The boy who missed his father, a woman crying into a coffee cup, a man smiling for the first time in years. It was symbolic, powerful, and deeply emotional. Lily's eyes filled with tears. "This is the story, isn't it?" she whispered. "Not just mine, all of theirs." Daniel nodded. "You didn't just serve coffee, you made people feel seen." Word of the diner's warmth began to spread. A small online blog wrote a piece titled, "The Booth Where People Heal," and soon, curious travelers began to stop by. Some came in silence, others shared pieces of their pain. Lily didn't always know what to say, but she offered what she always had, a warm smile, a patient ear, and a seat at booth 6. One day, a young girl entered, no older than 16. She looked frightened, her hands tucked deep into her sleeves. Lily watched her quietly choose booth 6. After a few minutes, Lily approached with gentle steps. "Hi, sweetie, can I get you something warm?" The girl looked up, her eyes red. "Tea, please." Lily brought her a cup and didn't ask questions. She simply sat at the edge of the booth in silence. After a while, the girl whispered, "I ran away. I didn't know where to go." Lily didn't respond right away. Then she said, "You came to a good place. You're safe here." The girl cried then quietly, painfully, and Lily just held her hand. That evening, when the girl had calmed down, Lily called a local shelter she trusted. They helped the girl find a place to stay. Before leaving, the girl turned back and said, "Your booth saved me." Lily smiled. "It wasn't the booth. It was you finding the strength to walk through the door." The words stuck with her long after. Every person who sat there brought their own story, their own decision to keep going. The booth was simply a witness, and Lily, she was the heart. Later, that month, Daniel had an idea. What if we put a journal at booth 6? He suggested one evening, for people to write in their thoughts, their stories, even just a message for someone else who might need it. Lily loved the idea. They placed a small notebook and pen at the table with a note. "This is a safe space. If you need to write something, anything, go ahead. You are not alone." At first, people were shy, but slowly, the pages filled. Messages of grief, hope, survival, love. People left poems, drawings, notes to lost family members. Someone wrote, "Today I decided to keep living." Another, "I came here broken. I'm leaving with a piece of peace." Lily read them quietly at night after closing, letting their words settle in her heart. One page, in handwriting she hadn't seen in a long time, caught her eye. It said, "I came back, just for a moment. The place still feels like home. Thank you, Lily. Always. No name. But she knew it was Thomas. She smiled and ran her fingers over the ink. He had come back, quietly, without needing to be seen, just to feel it once more. As the days passed, the journal became a symbol. People would open it just to read messages left by others, to feel connected to strangers who had once hurt like they did. The booth had turned into more than just a memory. It had become a living, breathing place of shared healing. One snowy night, as Lily and Daniel walked home hand in hand, she looked up at the sky. Snowflakes danced down gently, covering the street in white. Sometimes I wonder, she said softly, why me? Why did Thomas choose me to see him, to help him? Daniel looked at her, his breath visible in the cold air. Because you didn't just see him, you saw through him, past the silence, into the pain, and you didn't run away. She squeezed his hand. It feels like everything that's happened, every hard thing was leading to this diner, this booth, this life. Not just leading you, Daniel said. It was shaping you, so you could shape others. Lily knew he was right. Pain wasn't just something to survive. It was something that could teach, transform, and open new doors. It didn't erase the loss, but it made space for connection. Back at the diner, she placed a small lamp on booth 6. A soft, warm light that stayed on even after the diner closed. A beacon for those who needed it. One evening, she found another note in the journal. It said, "This booth reminded me I matter. Thank you, Stronja." She closed the journal gently and smiled. Booth 6 had become more than a place. It was a promise that someone would listen, that healing was possible, and that even in the quiet, you were never truly alone. Winter turned to spring again, and with it came new beginnings. The flowers bloomed outside the diner, and sunlight spilled through the windows each morning, casting a soft glow across the tables. The little bell above the door chimed steadily as customers came and went, each one carrying their own story, some shared, some silent. Lily had grown used to the rhythm of it all, the way people walked in with heavy hearts and sometimes left a little lighter. Booth 6 remained at the heart of the diner. Its soft lamp still glowed in the evenings, and the journal sat quietly on the table, now filled with pages and pages of handwritten notes, sketches, and letters from strangers who had sat there and poured out pieces of themselves. The book had become sacred. Lily started a second one, after the first was full, and then a third. Each book was carefully stored in a glass cabinet near the counter, labeled Stories of Hope. Daniel had found a small studio nearby where he painted and taught art classes to children on the weekends. He still sketched in the diner when it wasn't too busy, and sometimes he would read entries from the journal, quietly moved by the bravery of strangers. One day, while Lily was cleaning the counter, a woman walked in, holding a child's hand. Her eyes scanned the diner nervously before settling on booth 6. She gently asked, "Is it okay if we sit there?" Lily smiled warmly. Of course. She brought them a menu and a warm smile, noticing how the woman's hands trembled slightly as she picked up the coffee cup. After a few minutes, the woman whispered, "I read about this place online, about this booth." Lily nodded. "It's helped a lot of people. I just lost my husband," the woman said, barely louder than a breath. "I don't know how to keep going, but someone said, just come here, sit right, maybe it helps." Lily sat across from her and placed a hand on the table. "You're not alone. You're safe here. Take your time." The woman wrote a full page in the journal that day. When she left, her smile was small but real. She hugged Lily before walking out the door, her little boy trailing beside her, clutching a small sketch Daniel had given him. Later that week, a young man arrived with a guitar case and tear-filled eyes. He didn't order anything, just sat in booth 6 and stared at the window. After an hour, he pulled the journal toward him and wrote 2 lines. "My father never heard me play, but maybe he hears me now. I'll keep playing." The next evening, he returned and asked if he could perform a song in the diner. Lily said, yes, without hesitation. That night, as customers sipped their drinks, he played a quiet, haunting tune that left the whole room in stillness. When he finished, there was soft applause, and a few people wiped tears from their cheeks. Lily whispered, "He would have been proud." He smiled and nodded. The booth had become a spark for so many, a small corner in the world where people could begin again. Then one afternoon, as the sun hung low and golden in the sky, a familiar figure appeared at the door. Thomas, older but stronger. His eyes no longer carried the same shadow. Instead, there was peace there. Lily froze for just a moment, then smiled so wide it made her eyes water. Thomas walked in slowly, his coat tucked under one arm, and approached booth 6 like someone returning to an old friend. He touched the table gently, then looked up at her. "It's still here," he said. "Of course," she replied. "It always will be." They sat across from each other in silence for a moment, until Thomas reached into his pocket and pulled out a small book. "My story's being published," he said. "It's coming out next month. I wanted you to have the first copy." Lily took the book in her hands, running her fingers across the title, "The Booth." It read, "By Thomas Hart." She blinked back tears. "You did it?" "We did it," he corrected. "You opened the door, and you walked through it," she said softly. Thomas stayed for an hour that day, and before leaving, he He signed the first page of the journal in booth 6.